Hello, 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 everyone. Hello, hello. And we are here for another Wealth Wednesday. Hello, beautiful people. And we are here with our illustrious co host and founder of Mission Possible Worldwide, Mr. Gerald D. Rogers. Mr. Rogers, please say hello to our audience.
Greetings, everyone. We're excited to be here with you on our Wealth Wednesday with the wonderful Miss Brandi Davis, the Candlestick Queen. And so we have some information tonight that we're kind of excited about. And so we just want to open up and say welcome wherever you're listening. Hey, while you are listening, we want to make sure that you share this information with your friend, neighbors, and relatives to meet us and greet us here on Wednesdays so you can now be changed with information that is life changing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So tonight, we're going to be going off of a subject that I'm not familiar with. And so Mr. Rogers is going to be the one to lead this topic again. And so this is off of the politics of money. So, Mr. Rogers, please lead the way.
Well, although Ms. Davis says she's not an expert in this conversation that we're going to be having tonight, we know that because she's a woman, she's absolutely an expert on the politics of money. Because money, I'm sure you know that money drives everything that pertains to life. It drives and addresses the communities that we live in, also the communities that we don't live in. It addresses the politics of money has everything to do with what we put inside of our bodies, the food we eat, or the food that we don't eat. And it definitely drives conversations in our places of fellowships. So there is a whole uh, atmosphere created around the money of politics. So we just want to kind of address those things tonight and help you understand that the lack of money puts you in a position where people dictate politics to you. And having money puts you in a position where you dictate the politics to the people who don't have money. So it's real easy. All of us are affected by the politics of money. But one of the things that I want to just kind of dive in tonight to talk about when we talk about, they're like four pillars of money or the belief centered around money. And one is called money avoidance. And those are the things that, unfortunately, when you think about money avoidance and not putting yourself in positions where you understand how money works, then when you travel around the world, around the country, even in your local community, you can be in the same city and you see the money of politics. If you go to a particular section or town in your city,
You mean the
then
politics of money?
the politics of money, right?
Hmm.
That happens in every aspect of our life. Why do some areas in your city? I want to make this real personal to you that you avoid, and then there's some areas in your city that you enjoy hanging out in. Are there some cities, some areas in your city that you unequivocally run away from?
Absolutely.
Because when you talk about, there are some areas that you will see a whole different economy because the politics of money are very present. So how does that happen? Why are we not in a position where we really understand how money works and how often, even from a legislative standpoint, even from the type of even fellowship that you attend, everything is centered and driven around the money of politics, the politics of money. So in your experience, Ms. Davis, how
Hmm.
has, as you have evolved, how has the politics of money, how has it enhanced or put you in a position where you made a decision to become more in tune and more alert about money?
Um, realizing that some of the things that we hold near and dear to us when it comes to how systems work, how
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to injustices, when it comes to that in the area of ministry and how those things work and seeing how it operates, that you have to have resources in order to change certain things when it comes to the politics of money. You need resources in order to change, um, like you said earlier, legislation. You need resources to even be able to sit at tables to have conversations, to push your agenda. If your agenda is one that you want to change certain things, if you don't have the resources to do that, you're not going to be able to change anything. And so just being in this space has taught me that if you want to change the world, you need to change your economic situation first.
So when we look at the aspect of money, so there's another thing that we talk about money, and this is biblically, I think, where we've gotten away from how important money is. So money worship. So the text says the love of money is the root of all evil, right?
Mhm.
Not the money itself.
Correct.
But sometimes money becomes a god to us, and we begin to worship the money and not understand that money is a tool, just like you said. So we end up making decisions based on the worship of money, and so then we end up compromising our integrity and doing those type of things where money now becomes the grand driver of all the behaviors, and most importantly, the illicit behaviors, the things that bring detriment and harm to communities. Because I can believe that because we don't have these conversations, when you think about in some of the urban areas and some of the areas where they're drug infested and things of that nature, uh, in the beginning, because of the money worship and not having the understanding of the benefit of having money, we end up putting things in communities that brings harm to the totality of the community. The individual made progress, but it's always at the mercy of the masses. So, what about money worship? And I'm specifically talking about, you know, areas of drug selling and prostitution and things of that nature. The person that worship money ends up bringing harm to the community, the women in the community, and things of that nature. So, how does that affect your understanding on the politics of money in that regards? Understanding money worshiping.
Um, well, partly, and I'm gonna say this from this aspect, because I think when you mention those particular things, you talk about the drug dealing, you talk about the prostitution, you talk about those particular areas of harming the community. I do not believe that those particular areas for the people that are performing those things are necessarily worshiping money. I believe that they don't think that there's any other way out, and that is the only resource that they know, because those particular activities for them are pushed into their communities and are pushed into their neighborhoods and are pushed on them because they don't know any other way to make money. And so for them, they're not looking at it as they're worshiping money. Now, the people who are over them, now they're causing them to do this. Now, for me, they're the ones who are worshiping money, because a lot of times they are people in high positions. that don't care about those people that are under them. And they're the ones that are worshiping the money. Because I believe that most of the people that if they wanted to get out, if they knew a better way, they would not result to prostitution. They don't see another way out. And they wouldn't result to drug dealing if they had information on other resources that could help upgrade their lives. And for you said the worship of the worship of money, the love of money is the root to all evil. Not money, it's an inanimate object. It can just sit there and not do anything, but
Right.
it's what you would do to get it. And I don't think for those particular industries, let's say that like that, those particular industries, I don't think that they're seeing it as a love of money. I believe that they're seeing it as this is the only way that we can feed our families because we're uneducated. We don't have any other resources, and this is what I was raised to do. So that's my stance on that particular thing.
Right. So I wanted to add to that too, because we're saying drug dealers from an illicit standpoint, but I also too want to talk about worshiping money from a pharmaceutical standpoint, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the end result creates the same outcomes, right? So based on our understanding of that dynamic, then we have to also understand and hold people accountable to the politics of the drug industry in its entirety, right?
Right.
Even the drugs that are prescribed that end up being a detriment because the influx of the money aspect creates neighborhoods, it creates behaviors, and it creates patterns because the lack of understanding of how money works has a totality impact on everyone. So when we're talking about worship money, we're talking about the morality of the individual, whether
Yeah.
it's on the dark side or the accepted side. That understanding now creates that level of worship. So we're talking about money avoidance. We're talking about worshiping money. Then the next thing I want to talk about is money status. Money
Mm-hmm.
status. Now, when we talk about money status, we now allow the money to become our identity. And because the money now becomes your identity, once again, I guess really what I want to help the people understand tonight is money only magnifies who you already are,
Yep.
right? It only magnifies who you already are. So if you are um, morally corrupt, then having resources only add to the corruption. So I want to be very balanced today to help all of us understand that the politics of money is really about your moral clarity and the way you are from a moral standpoint. Because if you are a sound moral person, then the resources that you possess is all you're going to always see money as a tool to add value to those individuals that you're connected to. And if you're morally corrupted, then you're going to always see money as a way of enhancing your personal um, strength and ability to influence to protect what you've accumulated. So we're talking about money status. So when you think about money status, when you hear that word, what does that mean to you, money status?
When I hear money status, I think of either you have it or you don't. I mean, I just think of it's really no in between. It's either you're rich or you're poor. I know we have this middle class, section, but I just think either you have it or you don't. When I hear status, what is your status? Where are you fiscally? Where are you financially? Where do you fit in the narrative of being rich or poor? That's what I think of when I hear money status.
So I think it's more too. You say it all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
You call it the imposter syndrome, where the money itself lends to their self worth,
Mm-hmm.
and when they don't have it, then they go through identity crisis because their whole person is based on the status of the money.
Yes.
Now, I believe that because you have a proper understanding of money, if you gain it or lose it, you're going to always be able to regain it because your identity is not tied into what you have, but it's because of who you are. And because of who you are, you now possess what you have. So how often does that impact or affect the communities that look like you and I look? And
How
even
often does
from
how often does what affect
even
that?
the lack of money
Mm-hmm.
creates this thing. So when I was growing up, I spent a lot of my early years with my grandmother who lived in what they would call the projects.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea that my grandmother was not financially well resourced
Mm-hmm.
because her not being financially resourced, I never saw that on the outward, right? So
Mm-hmm.
even though we were in the projects, my grandmother's yard was well kept. It was manicured. It was there was no trash. And but now I see in the areas when I'm traveling around the city that I'm living in, and then when I'm in other cities and other states, that now that identity, that money status now has trickled into how visibly we just see and we display ourselves. You know, in particular areas of town, I know when I go across a particular street, I'm going to see trash all over the place. I'm going to see just things that are not visibly pleasing. So, how do we correct that thought process? Or how has it come in this season in our lives where we are now that not having financial resources has now come to a place that is visible? How do we embrace or make that become our identity now?
How
How did
did
that
we make
happen?
how did that happen?
Yes.
Honestly, if I can just say, I believe that are we speaking for a specific group of people, demographic of people, or are we speaking in general? Because I think that for a specific demographic of people, it has been an agenda that has been pushed, but poverty is visible. There is something that goes along with a mindset that is impoverished. It does not care about its surroundings. Because if you look if we could go deep a little bit and we can go spiritual, just for a second, God resists the proud and gives grace to the humble. One of the physical representations of the spirit of pride is poverty. If you look at and what goes along with that, unfortunately, is idol worship. If you see the people that worship other gods, most of those countries in those areas are impoverished. And those people are impoverished. So it's somewhere we don't really understand or haven't grasped that poverty, the physical image of that, it's visible. It's a visible thing. It's and so like you said earlier, when it for me, I didn't know we were poor. I didn't know growing up that we didn't have money because we had a house. My mom bought a house. She kept the house up. We were in the hood. Eventually, it turned into the hood. We weren't in the hood initially, but it turned into the hood because the children grew up and the children grew up into drug dealers because that's what was introduced to them. in their neighborhoods, in our neighborhood. But she kept the grass cut. She kept the trees up. She kept the curb up in the city. Like her yard was always done. She kept flowers. And so I'm not used. It's something that is on the inside of a person. And so it's a spiritual thing. And what has happened is, I believe, instead of us looking at the outward situation and assessing why does this look like this outwardly, we'll compare ourselves amongst ourselves and say, well, I'm not going to fix it because everybody else is doing it, or this is the norm, instead of saying what is wrong and is this the norm and what do we need to do to change it. It's spiritual. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, that was good because and I'm glad you took it down this path as well, because when we're talking about emulating the creator in which we come from, then it should be visible. And poverty is a complete opposite of what God intended for all his people and his creation. So when we think about now understanding that the visibility of poverty is not in alignment with the word of God, then now I want to just jump to the last piece of these four components of money. And we're talking about money vigilance. Money vigilance. So when we talk about money vigilance, being aware, being watchful, and being concerned about our financial health. Because even from a societal standpoint, there's really no we're talking about, and even from a formal educational standpoint, from pre-K to high school, there are very few moments when we address financial health and the importance of it.
That's true.
Even in our places of fellowship, right? The only time we address anything pertaining to finances is when it comes to tithe and offering or giving, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the model there looks like this to many people who wrestle with their giving. They only see the aspect of the leaders having the benefit of the resources of the people. Now, truly, if we go back to the biblical model, it was completely opposite in the New Testament. In the Old Testament, the leadership literally didn't have extravagant lives. But in the New Testament, when Jesus came on the scene, the leaders, when the actual church was birthed in Acts, it said in Acts 2 and 41, 47, somewhere around there, that they gave daily, right? So the people were already resourced because they were operating in the marketplace. Paul himself was well resourced. And everyone that Jesus selected as the apostles, as his disciples, they were
Or resource.
business owners. They were
Yes.
already well resourced. So some kind of way, we've gotten away from the biblical model that Jesus taught. And then it is now turned into, well, what you just said. It is now been taught not to address these things. And so what has happened, I believe, and you can help me out in this area, that the leaders have now utilized their resources to add to the bondage of the people as well, because they don't address the financial health of the people that they're leading. Have you experienced that? Do you see that as a perpetual um, disconnect in the body at this present time?
I see that everywhere when it comes to, unfortunately, not every church is like that. Not every assembly is like that. And there are some assemblies that, in some gatherings, where people are focused on the health of the people, resource wise. But most are okay with, and this is what I see, and let me just address this. I see where we beat up the people for being poor, but don't give, and about not being able to pay their tithes, but don't give them the resources to be able to pay their tithes. We see people getting beat up on Sunday, and I've heard churches I was a member at, where we're fussing at people. You're not giving enough. You're not giving enough. You're not giving enough. This building can't be taken care of unless you give more. These lights need to be turned on every Sunday. You're not giving enough. If you don't give, everything is going to go out the window. And it's like the people are sitting here not knowing if they're going to go back home and be evicted. And so you're saying give more, but what is the strategy? And so I've seen personally where people, is not that they don't want to give. Giving is an act of worship. It is a definite act of worship. And so it's not that people don't want to give. They don't know. They're not being taught what properly what worship is, and that giving is a form of worship, and that the leadership is coming from an aspect and from a point of, if you're not giving, then you're out of order. But these people are already impoverished spiritually. Their spirits are broken, and there needs to be an upgrade mentally. So that means that something needs to take place. There needs to be a renewal of the mind for them to come out of where they're thinking about resources and finances. But here's the problem. Here's the real problem. The leadership needs the same thing. They're beating up on the members when the leadership can't give you what they don't have. They can't give you the information because they need the information. They're trying to lead you to drink from wells they've never gone to. And so that's what we have to deal with now in the body of Christ. Is they don't want you to go higher because they're not there. They can't take you higher because they don't know. And so what we're seeing currently is people staying at this place, at a low place, because the leadership is afraid of you having information and having resources, and them not understanding or them not knowing what it is, because they're not humble enough to ask, well, what is that? How do we do that? How can, and let me get this information. And then if they get the information, now instead of them giving it to the people and setting up ways for the people to get the resource information, that's going to change their lives, now they're going to pimp out the information to the people. Now, you may have given them the information for free, but now they're going to not give that information to the people that they received freely. They're not going to give it freely. Now, if you have information, you got to pay for it. I don't care who you are. You're going to have to invest your information. But they're not even, the leadership is not willing to invest, and they're also not teaching their people to invest. So it starts with the head. That's just where I don't know if I answered your question, but that's my passion pain point right there. And you're sideways. You need to turn your camera back around. Are you frozen? You're frozen. Hello? Let me see if I take him out and bring him back in. We're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back after this brief intermission. So we are back from our intermission. And so we were just talking about that the leadership. So please go right into what we were talking about before our intermission, Mr. Rogers.
Well, I just want to end on that because you said something that's very powerful, that we now have to do a better job at helping people understand the politics of money, how it is encompassing every aspect of our lives. But on that note, when you talk about ministry, we must remember and remind ourselves that all of us are kings and priests, not just the leadership. Every person that is named the name of Christ now have to operate in that level of authority, kings and priests, meaning from the king perspective, we have the resources. And from a priestly perspective, we are properly worshiping God, serving our communities, and lifting up the people. We're pulling people out of the pit, because that's the whole purpose of the pulpit, for us to stand up to pull people out of the pit. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited to know that we get an opportunity to have these type of conversations on Wealth Wednesday. And then there's going to be some additional information on how you can stay connected to the community. But we're talking about the politics of money, your money avoidance, your money worshiping, your money status. But most importantly, the solution is money vigilance. And it's our responsibility to ensure that you are financially healthy as well.
Absolutely. So, guys, we're getting ready to close out our session on the politics of money. And so, we are going to make sure that you are able to plug into the community. The following video, make sure you plug in. We're going to leave the information for you to plug into our wonderful Mission Possible Worldwide community, where it's a community of like-minded believers that are focusing on faith and finance. So plug in, because that's what we're doing. We're focusing on empowering people in their communities, whether it's a business, whether it's your family, whether it's your ministry, empowering communities to have a different set of information so that you can impact not just this generation, but the next generation. Okay. So that is our session for tonight, and we will see you on the next Wealth Wednesday.